Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the greatest show on YouTube. It is baseball adjacent. I'm your host, Taco Josh, and I'm here with America's pitching coach. It's Justin Arth. We are fresh off the Speedway Classic, and I think the voices are a little hoarse, but that is going to be saved for another video. So like and subscribe because vlog coming out soon. Today, though, now that the dust is settled, we've had some time to digest. We've had some time to look and see how pieces are going to work. In some cases, well. In some cases, not as well out the gate. Cough, cough, Yankees, cough, cough. But we're going to rank the trade deadline. So, Justin, how are we feeling about that?
Other than a hoarse voice, I'm feeling good about ranking these teams. I mean, I think we're like 5 or 6 days post deadline now at the time of recording, and yeah, we've already started getting some answers on a couple players and a couple teams that have made deadline moves for the better and the worse. So we're looking at it maybe a little bit more in the hindsight with 5 days of hindsight, and we'll see how it plays all the way through September.
Yeah, it'll be real interesting. We do, of course, have our tier list here. We can stay flexible. We can add tiers as we need to or change names of tiers as we go. But what we're starting with at least is our heavy winners. These are the guys that won the deadline. Home Improvement is going to be like the 90s show, like Home Depot out in Atlanta. The teams that added and they improved, but they're maybe not what you would consider like the top tier winners, but they had a like net positive trade deadline. The next one is like filled a need, which is pretty self-explanatory. They made a trade, they filled a need. LTC,
Lateral Trade Central.
lateral trade central. So I think that's pretty self-explanatory. What are they doing is going to be teams that were like, what are they doing? And then absolute loser or losers. Maybe we'll rename this to the biggest loser, biggest losers in honor of the TV show. I'm in a TV mood. Home Improvement and the Biggest Loser. Shout out those shows. Maybe give them a watch, but not right now because you're watching that. And then we're going to rank all 30 teams. That's the way this is going to work. So scrub around, try to find your team. We're not going to go in any particular order necessarily. We're just going to flow in a way that feels natural. But I am going to give Justin the first pick on who he wants to talk about first.
Yeah, so since we're starting kind of at the top of the list and you guys want to know what we think about who won the deadline, I'm going to give you a good answer to start. So I'm going to give you my obvious winner from the trade deadline, and that is the Seattle Mariners.
Okay.
I think they came in with a really good roster. We always talk about like the pitching being as amazing as it is with Logan Gilbert and every single other guy that is on that roster pitching for that team. And their offense has been not necessarily historic, but it's been like really good this year with Kevin Seitzer, the old Braves hitting coach that we've let go. And their really only holes they had were first base and third base. And then you go in and swing for the fences, and you get both Eugenio Suarez and Josh Naylor from the Arizona Diamondbacks to fill those needs. Both are huge boppers that elevate that lineup to another level that like this offense might be the best offense that the Mariners have had since like 2001. And now you're adding to that offense. You got Caleb Ferguson as well from the Pittsburgh Pirates. So again, if you're going to compete in the playoffs, you need pitching. They have starting pitching. They can add a pitcher, obviously, as they did with Ferguson, into the bullpen. Obviously, they only made 3 additions, but the top 2 of Naylor and Eugenio Suarez, I think, are like absolutely massive. And I think that there are a lot of good deadlines from a couple of these teams, but I do think Seattle's is just the one tier up, especially because when you look at the Eugenio Suarez deal, everyone thought it was going to be massive in terms of prospects, and it wasn't as big of a haul as what we even talked about in like one of our last podcast episodes that the Diamondbacks may not even trade him because they want so much. So I think the Mariners getting them is absolutely huge, and that makes that team dangerous as they try to claw back the Houston Astros in the AL West.
Yeah, I wonder on the Suarez trade return if the hit by pitches down the stretch to the deadline had any impact on that because I can't imagine it was a massive impact, but I can't imagine also that it was a non-zero impact because getting hit in the hand twice in like that last 2 weeks, once in the All-Star game
Yeah.
even, uh, there had to be at least a little bit of concern. But no, I agree. I, for one, am so glad as I mean, I'm a Ranger fan, so putting the Ranger hat aside, I'm really glad to see Seattle kind of going for it because it feels like in their franchise they don't super do that ever. They don't really bring in the big free agent, but Cal Raleigh's having such a big year that I guess they're like, it's now or it's legitimately, if it's not now, when will it be? When you have the best hitter in baseball who's like behind the plate for you, it's a big move by them. I like it a lot for sure. I'll transition to another AL West team that to me is a big winner, but I'd like your opinion on it. And that's going to be the Athletics. I thought, especially on the scope of teams that sold, what they got back, it sucks giving up Mason Miller. I get that. But what they got back for him was pretty significant, in my opinion. I mean,
Absolutely.
DeVries obviously is the big name there, but even the guys behind him, if you're a prospect head, you've heard of Net, you've heard of Henry Baez and Nunez. Like these are guys that are going to make an impact right now. Like not right now, but like in the pretty immediate future of this franchise, and a lot of their core right now is hitters. If you think about it, you got Jacob Wilson, you got Nick Kurtz, you got Rooker, you got Butler. All these guys are hitters, so they added some pitching depth along with maybe the best prospect to go in this whole trade deadline. So it does suck giving up Miller, but on the scope of teams that traded that were sellers, I think they were the best one. Uh, in my opinion. They're a step above the other sellers, in my opinion, which makes them kind of winners, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for the sake of disagreeing, I still can't even disagree with you. Like, I mean, the Athletics are probably the best deadline of the sellers that we've seen. Like, we've already seen like the lineups in 2028 or whatever it is, whenever they'd be suiting up in Vegas, what that lineup could look like. I mean, that lineup at least 1 through 7, if not 1 through 9, if all those guys like pan out the way that like we've either seen or the way their prospect pedigree is. Like that lineup's like going to be really good. And I was on the board of like, don't trade Mason Miller, at least not yet. But this does kind of reek of like back in the day for me, like when the Braves traded Craig Kimbrell. Like some of that was also to get rid of the BJ Upton contract and send him to San Diego. But what a lot of that did was you had a really good young reliever that you could get a prospect haul back for. So you could start kind of retooling and rebuilding this team and just add more to the farm. The Athletics, I almost said Oakland Athletics. The Athletics absolutely did that with using Mason Miller and J.P. Sears in that trade. I mean, like you said, those quote unquote second tier prospects that were in the deal were still absolutely amazing too. So really good haul for the Athletics, obviously in Sacramento, about to move to Vegas. And yeah, I think from the sellers, they definitely won the deadline.
I guess in the same breath here, while we're on it, because their big trade partner there was the Padres, where do you want to stick them?
Yeah, so with the Padres, it's a little weird because I think they should kind of fall more in this home improvement area. Like, because when I was going through and rating them, I was going like A, B, C, whatever. I gave them a B plus. And so you're acquiring Mason Miller for now to be a back end bullpen arm with Suarez, who they'll share closing opportunities with there. So that's absolutely huge. You get JP Sears that adds some depth to the bottom of that rotation, which adding another lefty is pretty good. I really like the additions of O'Hearn and Ramon Laureano. Freddie Fermin is also not a bad backup catcher. And I think that Fermin trade, I think you gave up a little too much. Like, I mean, Kolak and Bergert, I think are still pitchers that can be something. And to get like a backup catcher, I think that's still a little too much, but I digress. And then getting Nestor Cortez, again, he's kind of been damaged. He's kind of like damaged goods right now. He's not pitching very well, but so you give up Lockridge for it, but Ramon Laureano fits that piece. I still think it's a good deadline for them. And what I'm reading is like the plan is Mason Miller is probably going to be moved similar to like my Braves with Reynaldo Lopez, like try him out as a starter after King and Cease are gone next year, or at least one of them are gone next year. So, I mean, still think it's a good deadline. They definitely went all in. AJ Preller is like prospects who I don't care who they are. I'm about to get more
Yeah.
prospects and trade them for big league talent and go after this every single year because that's what the fan base loves. And I think every year is a World Series year. So, still think it's a really good deadline. I just still think from buyers, Seattle was a step above them.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I think the thing that helps you maybe digest a little bit while the Ryan O'Hearn trade and maybe Laureano are for this year.
Hmm.
Mason Miller you have for 3 or 4 more years, as well as JP Sears you have for a while. So you did give up a massive prospect, but we have seen prospects like that bust. Like it's not a sure shot that he's going to hit. Now, some you would love to have not given up three other pitching prospects because you feel like at least two of those four are going to turn into pretty serviceable major leaguers, and one of them maybe could be a star, and then but you're already getting a star in Mason Miller, so I think it's a good trade, honestly, for both sides if you're San Diego. Uh, I like Fermin. Maybe this will transition us into a different team. More as like a platoon catcher than I do
Okay.
like the guy. I think it is an upgrade from Martin Maldonado because
Okay.
basically
Yeah.
anything is an upgrade from Maldonado. So they did need to do something there, but I do like him more as like Salvador Perez's, you know, the co-pilot to that, or like how the Braves have Murphy and Baldwin. I like him more in that role than as the guy long term, but I don't hate him having like a month or two down the stretch where he's the guy, you see where it's at, and then you can adjust in
Yep.
the off season for them as well. So I think overall, pretty good deadline for San Diego, but I do think they are probably a step below the Mariners, if we're all honest. I guess since Royals are on the mind, I'm going to rake the Royals here just quickly. Fermin got moved. They kind of added, but they also kind of took away. Like they added Yaz, they added Gritchick, they added Bailey Falter, but they traded Fermin and some other pieces. This to me is the epitome of just like lateral trade. They're kind of in the same spot as they were. It's not quite a what are they doing because they didn't really trade anything big away to get these guys, but they also didn't like get anything huge really for me. They're just it's not quite like a nothing trade, but it is just to me it's like kind of lateral moves because they kind of buy, they kind of sell. They did like the Tampa Bay thing of like they're not all in, they're kind of out of it, but I guess for as cheap prospect wise as bats were, they were like, yeah, we'll put some, you know, a nothing prospect, sorry Marte, for Yaz and for Gritchick, sorry Hoffman, uh, and just like make the team a little better and see what happens. But that's kind of where I have Kansas City at least.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Other than I think the tier, like I think they actually really need to be up in the field of need because I know we're talking about trade deadlines, but I do think with Kansas City, one of the big pieces of conversation of this trade deadline was they got the extra year extension with Seth Lugo as well.
Yeah.
So I think that like it raises their deadline slightly. And then yeah, you kind of made some lateral moves of giving up some guys, but then obviously you brought Bailey Falter in, who I think is actually going to be really good in Kansas City. I think he's like kind of a sneaky, underrated guy that can really be something for KC. Bergert and Kolak, I don't think are any slouch either. That can add depth to that rotation. Like Kansas City is obviously one of those kind of medium to smallish markets that can go on runs with this small ball type thing, and having pitchers like that can pitch. Kansas City typically can develop some of that. Randall Grichuk and Yastrzemski like feel like Kansas City Royals anyway. So it's like you get those guys in there, and yeah, it is probably lateral trade central overall. But I do think at least getting Seth Lugo that extra year, and then adding some pieces that still have at least a year or two of control, I think add to you fill the need because you're maybe not filling the need to compete right now, but you're filling the need that this team might actually take that next step that we thought they would take this year and do it next year.
Yeah. And to the people that are like, well, you trade away Fermin, who projects to be the starting catcher long term. Two of their best prospects in the minors are catching prospects.
Catchers.
So
Yeah.
long term, I think you feel at least okay about that situation, even though maybe you loved Fermin. I don't know, but I think long term it's okay. Like, it's not the end of the world to move off of him necessarily.
Yeah.
I would like to propose another heavy winner, and I know we're going to be AL West heavy at the top, but I think the Astros. We got to talk
Okay.
about them. We got to put them somewhere, and I think they're up here. Uh, just a really good deadline, in my opinion. They add Correa to play some third base. That's a position in need for them. I don't know how true it is, but he says, once Minnesota approached him and they're like, hey, we're going to shed salary, the only team he wanted to play for again was Houston, which I don't know how much I believe because I watched that man try to sign a contract with both the Mets and the Giants, right? So I think he could see
Yep.
himself playing in a lot of different places. But it's the media correct answer. But no, I think they got better. I think the ad of Jesus Sanchez from the Marlins, also a big get for them. This, I think, makes them better. They address needs and they didn't give up a super ton of people to do it. Like,
Yeah, like I think what they gave up was from a position of strength. Like I think Ryan Gusto is going to be one of the bigger guys that they talk about that they lost. But you look at the young pitchers that Houston's got, like they're only really looking at potentially losing Framber Valdez this offseason unless they re-sign him. And so it's like, okay, you're trading from a position of strength to fill a need moving forward. So I like what the Astros did as well. I would argue that they're more home improvement because Carlos Correa is also probably going to split time with Ramon Urias. And I would still put them a bit ahead of San Diego. But yeah, again, it's just what is this team with Carlos Correa going to be? Carlos Correa's had an absolutely horrendous season. And maybe the fresh start in Houston being back there is something that he needs to kind of turn it around and get back to the Carlos Correa that we've seen at times in Minnesota, but obviously how he was in Houston. But yeah, just telling a longtime shortstop to move over to third base that probably really hasn't played third much in his career. You could fact check it there, but either way, I don't feel like he's played a lot of third base in his career.
no.
Doing it in a playoff like division chase scenario and try to go win a World Series and having the offensive down year he's having, I don't think's as big of a move. It's just kind of more the like star power move. But Jesus Sanchez, I love and trading that position of strength to get another need with an outfielder, I think is a big get. So again, I think they're definitely improved, but not the winner of the deadline.
Yeah. I guess let's transition that from the Correa trade to Minnesota because we got to talk about him at some point. Just a complete fire sale there. They get rid of Correa, they get rid of Duran and Paddock, Willie Castro, Griffin Jacks, Bader, Brock Stewart, Colomb, Varlin is listed here. Ty France is listed here. Basically, the entire roster, right? If you have this many guys that winning
And
teams want
Buxton
to
apparently
add,
was
you
and
damn
Buxton
sure
was
better
apparently
be a
shopped to
winner.
Atlanta.
Yeah, so it's like, not what are we doing, but it is a little bit of like, what are we doing for them? I struggle with where to put them. I don't really think they got enough back for any of these people. I think you could talk about Matt Mikulski. No one's ever heard of Matt Mikulski. That was just straight up a salary dump to clear space. You got back Mick Abel, which I guess is like the notable name besides Taj Bradley for Griffin Jacks. So
Eduardo Tate's pretty good too.
yeah, like James
And James
Outman.
Outman, not bad.
I don't love the James Outman get for Brock Stewart. I feel like we've kind of seen that what he is, and it's not incredible. Hopefully, I'm wrong, but I don't know. I'm not super high on these guys. I think I would put them in maybe the biggest losers or what are they doing? I think there are teams that had worse trade deadlines. I'm looking at you,
Yep.
Pittsburgh, but it wasn't like an incredible deadline. So I think I'm okay with what are they doing for now.
Yeah, that's where I would put him. I'd put him in what are you doing? Because again, like you trade what 11 of your 26 guys on your 26-man roster at the deadline. I am a little higher on the Mick Abel, Eduardo Tate, like Taj Bradley, James Outman get back for that. I think Minnesota's kind of entering this kind of phase of a rebuild now that obviously Buxton really won't be a part of it probably, but he's under contract, no trade clause, and he's not going anywhere. So he'll just kind of see the rebuild through, and maybe he's like 38 years old when they kind of compete again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, getting an extra couple young pitchers in there, like getting like Taj Bradley and getting Mick Abel. I still think those if they're in a rotation every day for Minnesota and that pitching lab of Minnesota, I think you get the best out of them. And James Outman, I think if he plays every day, you'll see a little bit better James Outman than what we've seen in the Los Angeles Dodgers. So I think at least getting those guys fresh sceneries, fresh starts, being able to play a little bit, I think is a little higher. But again, what are we doing? Like you trade 11 of your 26 guys. Like now you're telling people on MLB The Show franchise mode, it's okay to trade your whole roster. Like now it's
Yeah.
realistic.
Now we're here. Now we're here. And I get the TV thing is it's a thing. Like if you don't have money
Yeah.
from a TV deal, it kind of handcuffs you, but it's tough. Let's clear out some of the fat. Let's add some of the biggest losers, get them out of the way. The first one I want to talk about maybe is Pittsburgh because I'm more well
Okay.
versed in them than maybe some of the other teams.
I've got
The
another
trades
after.
they made are okay. It's not like the best thing in the world, but some of the guys they didn't get rid of is tough. Like you have to move Kiner Falefa, you have to move Pham. In my opinion, you have to move Dennis Santana, who had a year and a half left. Like if we're looking at some of the reliever hauls that were happening in this trade deadline, non-negotiable. You have to move him. I didn't love the return for Bednar. You turned around and you flipped Taylor Rogers. You got him in for Cabrian Hayes, and then you turn around and move him to the Cubs. Uh, so I don't know. Like it just felt like some of the guys that you had to move Pham. Like Pham isn't giving you anything long term, and you have like Sawinski behind him. Like I don't know. It just wasn't for me really.
Yeah, I would completely agree. And to stay in that tier, I think the Boston Red Sox need to be added to that as well. I gave them a D plus in my little like grading rankings because I do like Dustin May in a new scenery. But you look at like the expectations of this team. This team's still trying to fight for an American League playoff spot. So, and the only things you go and get is Steven Matz and Dustin May. And then, yeah, you can, I guess, count the shipping Rafael Devers off earlier in the year. But yeah, I mean, Breslow bought instead of selling, like we thought with bringing in Rafi or trading Rafi Devers away. But they didn't swing big for Cease like there was rumored to do. They didn't play in the Sandy Alcantara market or Edward Cabrera or Mitch Keller. They didn't play in that market that could have really upped their ability to compete. And it's just, I don't think Dustin May and Steven Matz for this year are really going to do anything to make that team any better and compete anymore. Like, again, I like Dustin May in that spot. It's a fresh start. There's at least a rotation spot or two up for grabs that he can compete and with that fresh start, like see if things happen. But again, like that's not going to be anything like that happens here. And if you decide you wanted to sell, like you didn't sell Duran, you didn't sell Willie Abreu, so you're not restocking the farm system of any point. But again, their farm system's fairly good, so you don't really need to restock it. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's just you could have maybe traded a position of strength in like a lateral trade central type tier
yeah,
where you trade one of those outfielders for a pitching prospect, like I meant, or like I like I coined the Jaron Duran for Dylan Cease trade earlier at our last podcast, talking about the potential trades we might see. I just don't think the Red Sox did anything to help them compete right now, and with the expectations for them, it's definitely one of the biggest losers of the trade deadline.
yeah. And I'll tee you up here. Another one that I have down there is Atlanta. And we can go into a Braves rant at this point in the episode for a minute. They just didn't do enough, in my opinion, to offload. I know you have a little bit of a different take on that, but just my take on it is if you know you're not, and maybe nobody wanted him. I think they mishandled the
Yeah.
Ozuna situation to make him untradeable. I think you have the two catchers that you want to play, sure, but I think if you know, hey, we're going to try to trade Ozuna, you got to let him play because you essentially benched him. There's other guys like I don't maybe Raisel Iglesias just nobody wanted him legitimately because he's getting real money for a reliever. I just feel like there was guys I kind of expected to be moved that weren't moved, but I know you have a different take on that.
Yeah, I would still agree slightly to you on it, but yeah, as the guy that follows and watches the Braves every single day, every single night, the trades that Alex Anthopoulos made, some of them you're forced to make, like getting a DFA'd Eric Fetty, getting Carlos Carrasco, who's been DFA'd by the Yankees and just chilling in AAA with 5 good starts. Like the Braves at the point of the deadline had legitimately only 3 guys in their rotation, and it's really only 4 right now with some injuries and stuff going on too. So and Hurston Waldrop being back down in AAA. So you needed to buy a little bit to really just fill the rotation just to eat innings to get through the rest of the year. So those are just kind of nothing trades because you just got to get through the year. I'm actually kind of a big fan of the Tyler Kinley trade. I know we're talking about the Braves like buying slash selling, but not really selling much and maybe setting up next year. Like I think getting Tyler Kinley from the Colorado Rockies, he's got a $5 million club option next year. So he's kind of pitching right now. Like if you go look at the Baseball Savant numbers and you go look at his splits, he's terrible in Coors Field and was pretty serviceable anywhere else. So you look at that, it's very similar to the Pierce Johnson trade we made a couple years ago, to where now you maybe fix one of the bullpen spots for next year if he pitches quite well, and you only had to give up a AAA reliever that will probably never see the major league field ever anyway. You actually got a pretty scrappy infield prospect for Rafael Montero, who I thought had less value than even like a Raisel Iglesias. But where I do think the Braves lost the deadline is not capitalizing on Marcell Ozuna, who definitely won't be back next year. Raisel Iglesias probably won't be back next year. Both are expiring contracts. You didn't let them, I mean, you didn't get anything for them. And again, I think it is more to do with there was nobody offering anything substantial. Alex Anthopoulos said stuff like, I'm not just going to trade them to salary dump them. I want something back. So if I'm not getting something back, they're not going. Marcell Ozuna wasn't given any trades to 10-5 no trade clause on. So again, it just didn't feel like those 2 big names you could really trade. So it's nice that they're still here, but it kind of sucks you didn't get anything back for them, especially from a position player prospect, because I'm pretty happy with the pitching prospects they got. But I think where I'm maybe a little more frustrated is the Aaron Bummer. I want Pierce Johnson to stay, but again, $9 million for next year, similar to Aaron Bummer for next year. Like trying to get out of maybe a bullpen contract or two where teams are like really needy for bullpen arms, kind of get you some more money to spend in the offseason. And then obviously we'll talk about it probably in offseason episodes, but the saga with Ozzie Albies, like what's going to happen there at second base for the Atlanta Braves. And yeah, it's a weird spot, but I do think for as bad as the trade deadline was because of what you didn't trade or what you couldn't trade, I do think like the small little moves are actually better than a lot of people think. So I still think they're one of the biggest losers of the deadline, but maybe I have a little more of a positive twist or a positive spin on it, which is weird to say with how this 2025 Atlanta Braves season has gone, but that's my take on it.
Sure, sure. I think for time's sake, let's knock out some of the teams that had maybe similar deadlines. In my mind, at least, the Angels are going to be in like, what are they doing?
Absolutely.
Because they added, and that's a team that maybe shouldn't have added, but I do respect like, hey, we're going to put together like a decent team ish. Like, they didn't give up a ton, but also like they didn't trade Taylor Ward, who probably should have gone. Like they had guys that probably should have gone that they kept, and they added a little bit. Not they gave away a ton, but I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's a point. But also, I get the fan side of like, yeah, we want like a watchable team the rest of the year.
Yeah.
I would kind of put the Tigers in the same vein potentially. They added Charlie Morton, which I guess is a need, but it's not like a big one. I guess I just expected for
Yeah,
them
you
to do
kind of took the
more.
Tigers route of not really having any big name players. Like you're one of the best teams in baseball. You like swing for the fences here. Don't swing and miss.
Yeah, like I guess I just expected the Tigers to do more and again, didn't give up a ton, but I thought they were going to go get a big reliever, and the guy they landed on, I believe, is Kyle Finnegan. Then I thought they were going to go get a big starter to help bolster the rotation, and the big name they land on is Charlie Morton. And there's nothing wrong with Charlie Morton, but he is 41 and wasn't
Yep.
exactly having like a Cy Young caliber year, right? There's levels to this. Uh,
Yep.
so those two to me are very similar. I could kind of maybe put the Giants in the same boat of like
Yeah.
it's tough to sell after you just added Devers, not even three
Yeah.
months ago. Arguably, if you're counting that as a deadline move, the biggest trade of the year was the Devers trade, and now you have to sell like 2 months later. All those teams are kind of one and the same to me of like I get the Giants one more from like, oh, this didn't work even sort of at this point. We just need
Yes.
to
Let's salvage
restock.
something.
But the Angels and Tigers kind of baffle me, which is what this tier is for.
Yeah, I would like to even throw the Cleveland Guardians in that tier too. You let go of Shane Bieber, who's rehabbing, which again, you're getting something. You're kind of out of the race now. Paul Sewald gone, which again, those are okay moves. But I think where you're really more in this, what are you doing? Is if you really don't believe you can compete right now and trade some of these guys, then why not trade Quan and reset this roster? Why not trade Clase? But again, you couldn't trade Clase. You missed out on that because of the gambling thing.
Yep.
So I do think they're kind of in this place where I don't think they're necessarily lateral trade central, but I think this is where they fall.
Yeah, for sure. I think the other one, maybe same vein as Detroit, is the Cubs.
Yeah,
I thought they were going to take a bigger swing potentially than they did. Uh, and you could just retweet what I said about the Tigers for the Cubs. They're in a spot where they're kind of going for it. They're committed to going for it. You got Kyle Tucker for this year, and then you don't know if he's back. You got the breakout of PCA. Seiya's having an incredible season. Things are kind of happening with the infield. Like I thought they could have added a big bat, and we'd be real interesting there. Uh, but just didn't work out quite that way for them.
yeah,
Not that
and the
they had like
trades
a
that they've
horrible deadline, but it was a little bit shocking to me they didn't do more.
Yeah, and the trades that they've made, like Willie Castro, again, like I was saying, potentially a steal of the deadline of whoever gets them. I'm a big fan of that one. But one of your biggest needs you needed was another kind of big frontline pitcher to go with Shota Imanaga, and because Justin Steele's down, and you didn't really do that. You got Mike Soroka, which again, as a Braves guy, love Big Maple, but he's already hurt. He's already on the IL, and he's already going to miss time. So in reality, you gave up somebody for a lower tier starter who's probably a better reliever, and now he's already on the IL and not helping you now. So I think that again, not a biggest loser because you still got like a Willie Castro, you still added some other pieces, but yeah, it's definitely what are you doing? And I would even put the Chicago White Sox sticking with Chicago in there too. Like Curtis Mead, I think's a good get for them. But again, like you didn't trade Luis Robert, you didn't cash in on the little bit of a hot streak he had going on. And who knows what that trade value is going to look like this time next year with now even less control. And you
Yep.
actually are starting to have a solid core in Chicago, and you could really bolster that by trading Robert now. And you didn't.
Yeah. I guess the pushback you would get from White Sox fans is like, well, maybe Robert's part of the core, but also like Robert's, and this will be like a Robert sidebar, I guess. He's at a real interesting point in his career where he's really only had one good season.
Yeah.
All the tools in theory are there, and if he puts it together, you're looking at, we've heard for a long time Cuban Mike Trout, but it's now been a big enough sample size, and we haven't really seen it. And the White Sox aren't exactly the best team in the world. I get that, and maybe he's not. He's needs to be fueled by being on a competitive team, but you would think you'd see more flashes of it. So I don't know. I would have moved him, but also looking at I think relievers as a whole this deadline costed more prospect
Yep.
wise than we expected, and I think bats costed less. Uh, so maybe they didn't want to trade him in like a down thing, but also I felt like this would have been the time to move off of him. So I don't know. It is a very much what are they doing situation uh,
Yeah.
from them.
Well,
I see. Oh,
let's
go
go
ahead.
to a little more of a positive one. Let's try to fill the need. I think the Toronto Blue Jays should be there,
Okay.
and I think they've filled needs, but I don't think they've been that home improvement or won the trade deadline. I mean, you get Louis Varland and Ty France, two kind of role players from the bullpen and the bench. From the Twins, Sir Anthony Dominguez, obviously with the upside down 8 in the middle of a doubleheader, got traded over. So again, really electric when he came out for Toronto, and I think he's been overall good for them since the trade happened. But you needed that one big frontline starter, and in the vein of talking about Cleveland a couple minutes ago, like you acquired Shane Bieber, like he's a former Cy Young candidate winner, and he's done it before. So again, like good get, but he's been rehabbing in AAA and he hasn't pitched in like a year and a half, and now you're expecting him to be the frontline starter along with like a Jose Barrios and Bassett and stuff like that. I don't think they got enough from the starting pitching department, so I think they filled needs and made their team better. But I don't even think they're the home improvement tier. It's just you filled a need and got a little better, but I don't think you're even better a contender because of the moves that you made.
I guess to me, their entire deadline grade, if we were going to add, and this would have been obnoxious to have 7 tiers, but if you're going to add one, there would be like a wait and see, like what
Yeah.
happens. They would be in that tier for me because I think this whole how you feel about this deadline kind of hinges on what does Bieber actually give you. Because again, like you're right, they need a starter. Like Bieber, if he comes back and he is Shane Bieber, who he has the potential to be, it's a great deadline for them.
Yeah.
But if he doesn't, like if he's not able to, and he's not able to give you any amount of innings, and he's not that guy, like you have a much
It's going to
different
be like
outlook.
Toronto in free agency. You're going to sit and question, like, why did you make that move? And are we really going to take that next step of competing with the Yankees? That, again, they're not playing well right now, but these
Yeah.
trades probably will be fine. But it's like, yeah, like, are we going to get to that next tier of really competing with a $500 million man in Vlad Guerrero and all that?
Yeah, for sure. And I guess if you're Toronto, you do have a longer window because now you're not in a time crunch with the Vlad thing because you have him long term, and I guess we'll see about Bichette. I would like to pitch to you that the Yankees are home improvement. I liked their deadline in spite of the collapses that have happened
Yeah.
recently. Uh, they added a lot of pieces that I like that they added. Like if you a week ago, Yankees fans were pumped at what they got. You got Bednar, you got Duvall, you got Bird. Ryan McMahon was a big ad for them because they needed third base. Jose Caballero, you were pretty pumped about. Ahmed Rosario is like a good depth piece. In a vacuum, right? If we're grading the deadline and the moves that they made, those moves are good. They haven't worked out yet. I think they will. I think the Yankees are just kind of in a funk right now. I'm more optimistic on the Yankees than I know some of like the Yankees fans online are, but I think that they turn it around. I think they're still a playoff team. I think these are great ads that they had at the deadline.
I would completely agree. Like, yeah, it's kind of funny that you play the video of highlighting all four of the big trade line the additions that they made, the four big trades. And in that very first game after that video is posted, those are the four guys that lost you that game in the in the blowing of the lead.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's going to be the New York Yankees moving forward. Like you said, Josh, they're in a funk right now. But I think these moves from quantity and quality perspective, I think are one of the better ones of the deadline.
Yeah. I would like to group together a couple of teams. I'd like to group together the Mets and the Phillies because I think they had very comparable deadlines. They both added relievers. They both added an outfielder, which both of them needed. The Mets needed a way to keep McNeil out of the outfield, and the Phillies needed a way to keep Max Kepler out of the outfield. And they did that with Bader and Mullins, you know, to each team. I guess I'm stuck on where to put them. I am not blown away by either team from one another. I guess I lean more home improvement because it was kind of an arms race and the Pens did get better and the Phillies for sure needed more pen help, and now you look at the Mets pen and it's one of the best bullpens in baseball on paper.
Yep.
But I could also be talked into like a very high, like above Royals, Jays filled a need. I was just curious where you would put those two.
Yeah, so if I'm looking at them, I honestly feel like just because, like we just talked about the Yankees, how I thought their roster was or their trade deadline was quality and quantity. I do think the Mets would be slightly above the Phillies, so I would actually put the Mets right behind the Yankees in home improvement, and then the Phillies right on top of fill to need. I think the Johan Duran is like absolutely amazing. I do like the fact that Harrison Bader's there to kind of fill a little bit of an outfield need, give him a little bit of bench depth. And then even getting Matt Manning, that kind of replaces what you lost in Mick Abel. Like, yeah, Matt Manning's a little older, but you're looking at a quad A arm that can come up and pitch for you a little bit, sit down in the minors. So I feel like there they made some improvements. But like the Johan Duran one's going to stick out because that bullpen's absolutely terrible, and that's really the one thing they needed to fix. But the but the Mets, like getting Ryan Helsley, getting Tyler Rogers, getting Gregory Soto and Cedric Mullins, like I feel like they got similar quality that the Phillies got, but they got more quantity of it. So I would say the Mets slightly, just a hair ahead of the Phillies. Now I do think the Phillies are the better team, but the Mets I think edged them on the deadline.
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking right now at a tier that's completely open, and I made that tier with one team in mind, so I'm going to stick them there now, so it's not just messing with my mind. Tampa Bay is just lateral trade to me. They kind of added, but they kind of subtracted. They didn't move Diaz or Lowe, but they did move Taj Bradley, but they got Jax back. And they like are kind of going for it, but also they're not. It's like a very. It's not quite a what are they doing because I do think I like their moves and what they got. Like adding Griffin Jax is scary for them, right? Because he
Yeah.
went from being the best reliever, one of the best relievers in baseball already, to Tampa, who like makes everybody better.
Excels in
So
pitching.
what's that about to look like? I don't know. Like, I guess if you're gonna give a letter grade to it, it's like a C. It's almost like a nothing
Yeah. Well,
deal.
I mean,
But
yeah, it's lateral trade central here. Like, but you see this with Tampa Bay every single time. They trade guys that are getting closer to being paid for another crop of performing players that have more eligibility or more control in terms of pre-arb and arb, and then you just do the same thing over and over every 3 or 4 years when it's time for guys to get to places that they're getting paid. And yeah, I mean, flipping Taj Bradley to Minnesota and getting Griffin Jax, I think, is a huge deal. And yeah, I like some of the moves they made. Now it's kind of weird that they traded two catchers. So who's really catching for them now? Is really kind of a
yep,
what are we doing move. But other than that, like it's lateral trade central, and yeah, they improve the depth of their team in giving them a little more control for long term. And the Tampa Bay Rays are just going to continue to do what the Tampa Bay Rays do.
yeah, they did, and this is again right back to lateral trade central. They did trade away two catchers, but they also did add a catcher, which is like the exact same tier. Like they got rid of Danny Jansen to Milwaukee, who I guess we should talk about at some point because they're the best team in baseball. But they added Nick Fortes,
Uh huh.
who in my mind those are very comparable players. So you traded one guy who's okay, and then added another guy who's okay. Uh, I guess let's talk about the Brewers. We just watched them last night as we record this at Truist Field. Where do you have them? I guess.
Yeah, I still at this point I think put them in lateral trade central. I don't think they're the what are we doing, and I don't really think they're filled a need either. Because yeah, you got rid of Nestor Cortez. and you added Danny Jansen, but William Contreras catches 90% of the games there. And is he going to take DH spots away from Christian Yelich? So I get having another depth catcher because, like, I'm an Atlanta Braves fan. I got two pretty good catchers playing. But then you look at they got Jordan Montgomery and Shelby Miller. Like, are those guys really going to help you in Milwaukee? And I say that, and I'm probably going to eat my words because Milwaukee's like a pitching lab similar to Tampa. But I do think like they didn't get better, but they didn't get worse, and there's really no other place to put them other than lateral trade central.
Yeah, for sure. I guess we'll stick in the Central here because we're just going to clear out some of the teams that we have left in no particular order because that's part of the episode that we're at. Let's talk some Reds ball for a minute. They add Cabrian Hayes. They trade away Taylor Rogers. Do with that what you will. Cabrian Hayes, not a great bat, but really good fielder. But the potential, I guess, is there. And Rogers isn't going to help you long term. They add Littell. They add Andujar. Uh, I don't really know like where to rank them in this. I guess is
Yeah,
my
for me, I'd put him right behind Toronto and fill the need because you and me both, I think, are pretty high on the Cabrian Hayes at third base there. And what he's done offensively since joining Cincinnati has been pretty good already. Now, we'll see if that's, again, one of those wait and see, similar to where Toronto probably should be too if there was another tier. But we got to wait and see. But Zach Littell's a good back end starter there. They've had some inconsistency with like a Brady Singer and some other guys at the back end of that rotation, but they've got like four really explosive, like good guys at the front of that rotation. And then Andujar's not a bad get either in terms of a bat. You don't want him fielding, but they're going to play him in the outfield, I guess, like they did at the Speedway Classic. So, yeah, I mean, getting Hayes, I think, is a big move, and I think they definitely filled a need, and it's one of those wait and see to see where it ends up.
Yeah, I would like to stick in the Central, just finish that division with the Cardinals. Uh, to me, they're not in it. They didn't fire sell. They didn't move Arenado, which I hear both
Yeah.
sides of that argument for sure. But they did move Helsley. They got some nice return for that. They moved Matz to get Blake Jordan. Eric Fetty, they got off the roster, which to me is always a net positive, as we saw last night in Atlanta. They
Hey,
moved,
one 3-run homer. That's the only issue.
yeah, yeah. And they moved off Matone. They got some prospects from Texas. As far as sellers go, it's not like a oh my god they won the deadline, but it's like okay, like
Yeah,
they're in
you
a
could have gave up more, but yeah, you just got rid of some of your expiring deals.
yeah, which to me, I guess I'm gonna slot them right into fill the need because I don't think
Yeah.
this is like a hey, they improved drastically the farm system, which I think you'd have to do for home improvement, probably. But the farm system got like kind of better, at least a little bit. Uh, in a year where probably this is not it, they have too many teams to jump. It was okay. Like I'm glad they got something for Helsley, and I'm glad they got something for Matz and Blaze Jordan. Was a big name out of Boston at some point. So I think it fills a need, and it's like okay. So where do we? I guess let's knock out the Rockies. I'm gonna throw that at you.
Okay.
Where do we go from here? Because we traded Jake Bird to the Yankees.
Yankees,
Is
McMahon, Yankees, and then Kinley to Atlanta.
Yeah. So and they
So
got some reasonable returns, but where are we putting them?
yeah, I still think like I don't hate their deadline at all. I obviously you're one of the worst teams in baseball, so you have to sell. And there wasn't really much to sell, so you sold what you needed to and opened up roster spots, and you filled the prospect bank a little bit. So I think again filled a need.
Okay. I'm gonna talk about my Rangers for a minute because we're at that time in the episode. I'm gonna snipe them. They are a bat away in my mind from being a heavy winner, but they add Colomb, they add Matan, they add Kelly. I think Kelly is the most fair trade of the deadline. Uh, if you're looking around, I think Uh, the Rangers, it's the most Rangers move of all time. They're like, yeah, we'll give you, you know, two top 10 prospects of ours for a guy who's a back end. But I think as a Rangers fan, I would have loved to have seen a bat get added. I don't know who that would have been, especially with the prices being as low as they were for bats. And I'm not in the front office, so I'm making some educated guesses to that just based on some of the returns for the other bats that went. I would have liked to have seen a bat get added for sure, but I do think with Colomb, it's now like the stat that gets thrown around for the Rangers is it's the top five bullpen in baseball by ERA, but at the same time, they have like 9 or 10 blown saves on the year. So I don't know. Those two kind of contradict, and I think Colomb kind of shores that up. It at least gives the Rangers fans some peace of mind. I would say they are like very top of filled a need, and they're like a bat away from home improvement. Like if they even added, I don't know, like a Jesus Sanchez or something instead of Houston, they're in home improvement. But I don't think I can go there because they didn't. The one thing I think everybody was like they need to add a bat, and they just didn't do that. They added more pitching to the best pitching in baseball. So that's kind of where I'm at with them.
Okay. Well, I'll scratch off the rest of the NL East with two swoops here. So I'll take both Miami and Washington and throw them in lateral trade central.
Okay.
Obviously, both are sellers at this point. So obviously, you're going to have to sell something. Miami is probably right in that Tampa Bay area there on maybe kind of top of lateral trade central. But yeah, you ended up giving up Nick Fortes, who is younger and could have still been a guy there with Agustin Ramirez at catcher. Getting rid of Jesus Sanchez that doesn't fit the window that this Miami Marlins will have to get like a guy like Ryan Gusto back. That if you don't trade Alcantara, if you don't trade Cabrera, Gusto obviously can be a back end starter potentially, which again, Miami's looking like they could have a pretty good rotation here in about a year or two if all those guys stay. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of lateral trade central because you sold some guys, but I'm not big on the return you got back other than like Gusto. And then you didn't trade Alcantara and you didn't trade Cabrera. Now with Washington, on the other hand, again, you're sellers. You are one of the worst teams in baseball, and you traded guys that obviously needed to be gone. But I'm not really big on any of the returns that they got from any one of these deals. And then they still couldn't trade Josh Bell, who since June 1st has an 842 OPS and is killing righties. So it's kind of like you couldn't find a trade deal for that to maybe get an extra prospect or two. If they could have got rid of all of their expiring contracts, maybe they're kind of where Colorado's at. But yeah, I mean, for the amount of trades they had to make, I'm just not too happy with what they got back for the Nationals. But again, they only had a certain number of expiring contracts to sell. They've got a good core, but yeah, it's always good to add a couple more impact prospects if you can.
Yeah, I will maybe echo that, but with the Dodgers, and that might be a hot take, but the Dodgers, and it would be hard, I guess, to wow me with the roster they already have, because on paper it's the best roster in baseball, probably. But they didn't add a ton, and again, it's like, how do you add to that roster? I get that. I like the Brock Stewart trade for James Outman. I think that's the best move that they made. But they got Alex Call from Washington, and like, what's that gonna be? And they didn't really add a pitcher, like a starting pitcher, which we thought they might. You know, if everybody's healthy, they don't need to, but everyone's not healthy. So I don't know. I just was. It's like they, I guess, on paper got better because Brock Stewart is a nice get. He's actually, sneaky one of the better relievers in baseball. No one's saying he's the best, but certainly like top 20 relievers if you're to really get into the weeds in baseball, which you'll take. For a guy who, in James Outman, they've tried and they just don't really have a spot for on the roster. It's basically like they gave up nothing for him because they have, you know, they just added Alex Call, who I guess is just the immediate replacement for Outman.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know. I wasn't blown away by the Dodgers deadline, and that's okay. Like they're still a World Series contender, but their deadline as a whole I would have thought more than just Brock Stewart, who's one of the best relievers in baseball.
Absolutely.
All right, we got two teams left. You got Arizona and Baltimore. Pick one, and I'll do the other.
All right. Well, let me scroll up to my notes about Baltimore, and I'll take the Orioles.
Okay.
So, Baltimore Orioles, they had a lot to sell. This season was a colossal failure for them in terms of record versus expectation. And they had a bunch of expiring deals around a core that, again, even with this bad season, I think we all still think's a really good core. But with all the guys they traded away, I mean, Ryan O'Hearn, Ramon Laureano, Cedric Mullins, Sir Anthony Dominguez, Gregory Soto, Charlie Morton, Andrew Kittredge, Ramon Urias. They got Dietrich Ennis or Dietrich Enns from Detroit. But I think, again, going back to what I said about like the Mets and Phillies, like I think teams that trade away a lot need to get a lot. And the Orioles already have a pretty strong farm system. Like we talk about that AAA team that they had just like a year
Yeah.
or two ago that was like slacking everybody 22-0 and all that kind of stuff. Like I think they added more guys to that. But obviously, you reset the roster, you reset payroll. So I would put them in that like maybe a little bit ahead of Kansas City and behind Philadelphia, but fill a need for Baltimore.
Yeah, I sneaky really liked their deadline. They didn't really give away anything that would help them win in 2026, like substantially, right? I
Yeah,
guess.
and the great thing too is Bautista probably would have went, which would be a move I'd be like, hey, don't make. But Bautista then got hurt, so then you're forced your hand to not move him, and you I think had a really good trade deadline, trading away guys that weren't going to be a part of this core moving forward, and you got good return back.
Yeah, I think both of us are really, really high on the Orioles long term. It just didn't work out this year.
Yep,
And that's okay. And the only guys that, you look at and maybe should you trade them, shouldn't you have traded them? You can play that game all day is like Eflin, what would he have gotten if you decided to move him? Gary Sanchez, what would he have gotten? But I mean, outside of that, basically everybody who was on an expiring deal, they moved. And that leaves us with Arizona, the last team, and arguably the team of the trade deadline. And I don't know how they slid this far if we're doing this as a draft. Sorry, Arizona fans, but
hey,
they,
it's leaving the best for last, right?
yeah, yeah, they moved Suarez, they moved Kelly, they traded Shelby Miller, they got rid of Naylor, Grichuk. They got some
Montgomery,
decent return though. I think
yeah,
they didn't get as much for Suarez as maybe they were hoping, but I think as a whole, like I'm a Rangers fan, so Cole Drake for them is going to be a nice get. Mitch Bratt for them is going to be a nice get. Uh, I like it was a decent return. I think it wasn't like an insane like athletics return. I almost called them the Oakland Athletics. Sorry, I'll put 5 cents in the swear jar, but it wasn't crazy. I do think the farm system got better, and this is another team where they should have been better. The staff should have been better. It just didn't work. They're just going to try to move off of it. They got some pieces back. I guess to me, I'm going to put them right by Baltimore because I think those are very comparable. Of like, they
yep,
should have been better. It wasn't. What can we get back? Maybe I like it slightly better than Baltimore's just from a return side, but
yep,
I would be pretty comfortable putting them there and they're just restocking for the future, which I think is okay.
absolutely.
Well, I think that's our list. That's all 30 teams in just under an hour, unedited. So I guess let us know. Did we nail it? Did we miss it? Did we do a great job? Do we not know ball? What did we get wrong about your favorite team? Because you all know your favorite team better than we do, except for Justin and the Braves and me and the Rangers. I'm pretty confident you guys know your team better than we do, just looking at it on paper. But I don't know. You got any last words? I guess overall, as a deadline as a whole for the league, what letter grade would you give it?
As a whole, I think we'd have a B plus deadline. I think some good moves were made, but we didn't have any like outstanding, amazing moves like Sandy Alcantara or any like huge trades that have happened. Like obviously some of the bigger guys that we expected to be moved, like a Eugenio Suarez, a Josh Naylor, they were moved. And again, Seattle going back and winning the deadline, in my opinion. But yeah, B plus deadline. A lot of guys removed, some impact closers removed, which always makes a deadline exciting. And yeah, I think some teams got better, and I think everything got a little more competitive.
Yeah, the I would probably give it like high B's as well. A lot of teams added, and I think that's good for baseball. I think, we
Shout out
clowned on
playoff
them a little
format.
bit earlier, but like the Angels kind of going for it, in my opinion, is like kind of good for baseball, where it's like, hey, we're not just going to sell every year infinitely. Like, there are going to be years where we're like kind of out of it, but we're close enough. Like, we'll add a reliever, roll the dice, see what happens for nothing. Like, that kind of move. I think a high B. You got like some blockbuster trades and like the Mason Miller one, obviously, the Suarez one. You got some depth ones. A lot of teams filled needs. There was an arms race. Like, I think high B's. I think if you move the Devers trade and all the drama later in the season to now, it's like an A plus deadline.
Oh, absolutely.
But just
And
like,
maybe if you get that Dylan Cease for Jaron Duran
yeah,
trade, that adds to it. Yeah.
that pushes it over the top, but still like really good. I won't say like, oh my god, best deadline ever, clickbait. Uh, I won't go that far, but it was like good.
Maybe we should.
Yeah, maybe we should for clicks. I guess let us know. What did we miss? What did we not? How would you grade the deadline? If you made it to the end of the video, Justin's going to give you a player to comment right now.
You're going to comment the best player in Tennessee history, Eli White. And funny enough, right as I say it, he's hit another home run in the fourth inning against the Brewers. So shout out Eli White. You are a baller and the best player in Major League Baseball history in the state of Tennessee.
Yeah, thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch y'all in the next one. Take it easy.